like this. It's a little too small the other way. But it's cute. It's a cute little background.
I guess. Are we live? Oh, okay. Well, I can't see none of the controls, so I can't see who is online, what is going on. Send out an email. Let me open up my syllabus.
Yeah, we're sorry if we have one person just joined.
Products. Let's give people a minute. Come on. This is one of my favorite books, but I am like, now that I'm rereading it, I'm like, wow, what was I on?
I never read this. Before this, I hadn't read this. So
no, like I distinctly remember the first time I read this book and I devoured it. Like it was just like a whole new life, a whole new world.
That's when I was reading reviews, and a lot of Black women were like, "What is this? This is Alice Walker's some of her worst works." I was
really some of her worst.
Yeah, they said they don't like the character. They said the characters aren't well developed. Too much dialogue. That there's no plot.
Damn. I'm not that far into the book, to be honest.
Yeah, I just read chapter part 1.
I have not finished part 1. That's why I went back, because I was like looking at the book. I was like, wait, because I was basing how we broke down the live discussions based on how many questions were in the syllabus. Mm-hmm. So it looks like part 1 is real short, when in actuality, there's a lot to part 1.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can't expect everyone to read this and be caught up, because this is way too much. This is too many pages. Even if maybe at the core of it, it's a lot of buildup, it still is, it's a lot.
Kind of slow, and then it was like, boom.
Yeah, we get to Carletta and her mama. You like, oh shit! Like, what kind of bitch is you? That mama foul. But the part 1 is 140 pages.
Mm-hmm.
It is a book unto itself. I think what got me about this book is that I love the Gospel according to Suge Avery,
mm-hmm.
which I think comes up in like part 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that just like really spoke to me. But I was also like, the first time I read this, I was like 21. I had like read one Bell Hooks book. I had read When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost. And so I didn't really, let's see if you can see me if I close the frame. I didn't really, I wasn't as well read as I am now. Mm-hmm. Now going back, it's like, I'm not going to say it doesn't have, it carries. It's just very like flowery. It's very,
yeah.
But the syllabus for this read is cute. Dr. Nicole did it. Somebody says, I'm only 30. Oh, I can't add it to the screen. You got to add the comments to the screen. Okay. I'm only 30, but it's already popping off. I was ready to fight, to be honest.
It was so messy. I was like, hold on, wait a minute.
That mama set up just the way, like, imagine your mother being on a boat like Titanic with her flowy white dress, and it's your husband wrapping his arms around her. Like that, there ain't nothing about that wouldn't bring about a white hot rage.
And I'm trying to think of it. I'm like, okay, like I'm trying to think of it in conversation with pleasure activism, and I'm like, there is no way I can like reason through this in my mind. Like nothing about this is right. This is just wrong. Like it's too much. It's too much. And even the way they navigated, like telling her, like it was just.
It's just how cavalier that little wannabe Jimi Hendrix ass nigga was. You know what I mean? Like, and every description of him, I was like, is he Jimi Hendrix? Like, what is this? Alice Walker, what commentary are you trying to give us about Jimmy? Did you know him? Was you a groupie? What's going on? Okay, so a lot of the syllabus for this actually starts with the history and the breakdown of the book, because one thing is, even though this book seems a little bit, I don't know if I want to say it's dense or like
it's a bit dense.
It's a bit like just a lot of there's a lot of expose in the book.
Yeah.
But that a lot of what the book has to do with is motifs and themes and commentary on world history. Yes, this is why we talks for every book, because not everything we read is, I think this era of writers, this era of like Alice Walker, Toni Morrison, the motifs are very heavy. There's a lot to read into it. And so I think maybe we're more programmed with recent literature to want to read a storyline and everything is explained and it is as it appears. And a lot of these books are really more invested in sort of the mysticism of the ordinary, the mysticism of the ordinary Black experience. So it's not that this Black person had to be extraordinary in their magicness, but the magic within them comes from the very ordinariness of them, right? The mundaneness of being Black can also be magical. Yeah, and it is kind of like I have not seen, what is The Hobbit? Is The Hobbit part of the Harry Potter?
I didn't read it. I've heard isn't like Star Wars or something. I'm probably wrong.
No, it's like with Elijah Wood.
Oh.
It's like one of them, like, I ain't read, what I'm trying to say is I ain't read none of them books or seen any of the movies.
Yeah.
But what it does remind me is more of like a Lord of the Rings. It's like a retelling of world history, right, through the lens of a Black woman. That's how I perceived it, but I don't know. That was also a good 15 years ago. So here we are.
I like that it wasn't set in the U.S. I think that adds an interesting element to the conversation. Having it be like Central America, that we have an
Afro-Latina main character.
Yeah. So I think that's especially like because Nicole included womanism in the syllabus, and I think that's often a conversation that, and even with Black feminism, those are conversations that tend to be concentrated to like a U.S. framework, I guess. So it's really I'm
you can take the question off the screen, but yeah, like when I started reading this again, I was thinking it is interesting that this class of Black feminists, Alice Walker and then Dr. Collins, because when we had Dr. Collins for the author chat, there is this fascination. And I don't mean that as a shady thing, but there is sort of this fascination with like the Afro-Brazilian. Like, I don't know if you saw the part where Dr. Collins was talking about going to Brazil and just lighting up about the work that Black feminists in Brazil are doing. And it seems to be a common theme when you talk to a lot of like Black feminists from the era of, that were around when Barbara Fraser and, the Combahee River Collective was around, that there is this reverence also for the work of the Afro-Latina experience. So I was like, oh, okay. I forgot that Carlotta was Central American. All right. So should we read? I feel like we like there's so much before you even get to the discussion, and I kind of want to like read it just to start folks off. The themes, I got the old school copy. I don't know if anybody else's copy looked like these.
Look, I didn't even realize it was that thick. Wait, turn it to the side.
Yeah, it's thick, right?
Okay. Yeah. I'm reading it on my computer, so I didn't know it was that big.
It is. And I don't remember it being a long read, though. So now I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm on lonely page 40. But this is a reread for me, so we're going to pull from the annals of our memory for this discussion. All right. So the overview says it's important to understand that this text blends historical fiction, feminist literature, and metaphysical experiences. Therefore, exploring the text while understanding the author's background, African diasporic history, feminist perspectives, and your own experiences will prove helpful. Somebody's saying it's free with Prime. Yeah, I think Brittany just posted that in the Facebook group, and I need to put that in the newsletter when we send it out tomorrow to announce that Adrienne Marty Brown is doing an author chat with us. But yeah, I wonder though, like you were saying earlier about reading the reviews, people saying they don't like it. That sounds like, well, what kind of Black woman read this and didn't like it? Because I do wonder if you don't have, not to say, I don't think it's fair for me to say if you don't have, but depending on where you're at within a Black feminist understanding, like say you're just not interested in Black feminism, would you like this book? I think if you had like a beginning interest and you were interested in Black feminism, this book would be of interest. I don't know. I wonder how I'll feel about it now that I have a better understanding of Black feminism, how I feel about it at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, like, what kind of Black woman was like, this is not hitting for me.
No, it was a lot of reviews. I think, was it Goodreads? That's where I was reading.
What are they used to reading? I feel like Goodreads is bougie though, so it'd be like a bougie Black woman. But she's coming from Zane. I don't like, you know what I mean? Like if she's coming from the Eric Jerome Dickey, she gonna like, but I read Milk in My Coffee. You know what I mean? I read Between Friends and Lovers. So like, I don't know, like.
Right now I don't know how I feel about it. It's kind of. It was very, granted, like the whole thing, the issue with her mother happened within the first few pages, but it was kind of, the pace was a bit slow. It was kind of, okay, like what's going on? And then the stuff happens with her mom, and then we jump to another character that she's connected to eventually, but I'm not following. Like, I'm following.
You're not feeling it.
I'm not sure.
You're not a fan.
Yeah.
Well, how'd you feel about Sula?
I love Sula. Like, that's one of my favorites.
I feel like the book club did not like Sula. I think you have to kind of sit with it though. I think at the point where we were reading it and it ended, it does not end with a good feeling. And so your reaction to it not ending with is what I just read. But now that like I sat with it for a little while, I'm like, that book slaps. Like the themes just like they just come up in life again and again and again.
I love Sula.
But I think I needed to sit with it longer. Yeah.
I read Sula I think I read Sula in high school. Like I just picked a random Toni Morrison book and I read it and I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And I read it with the book club and I was like, okay. And it was timely. It was kind of like speaking to my life at the time in a way. So I think that's why, it kind of hit different, but I'm not sure where we're going with Temple right now.
Yeah, Sula hit for me because I knew someone in real life who was Sula, similar, who had the toxic traits of Sula.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like this reminder that though, when people like that come into your life, don't allow that hate to fester so much that it shapes how you act as a person, right? Because that whole town, their goodness relied on their hatred for Sula. And when she passed,
whole town.
You know what I mean? Their ability to be mothers was gone because it was all performance.
Mm-hmm.
That does kind of speak to like the performative, like how prominent performative whatever is for us today. This performative activism, like everything that we can that exists right now. There's a performative angle of it because social media is so prominent in our lives.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe by the ending we can turn you around.
Hopefully.
Okay. I do think it's important to understand Alice Walker and she is the woman. I don't know if she is 100% credited, but she is considered one of the people that coined the term womanism.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore she had a hand in the early beginnings of the modern Black feminist movement. She had friendships and was in existence with the Combahee River Collective and the women that were included in that group.
Reading In Search of Our Mother's Garden. I haven't read too much Walker before.
Wasn't that not your idea? I forgot that you did recommend the other Alice Walker book that we read. That was you. Okay, so go ahead.
And I read portions of it like within like the past maybe like 3 years. And I was like, let's just read the whole book. And I was reading it, and some parts I was feeling it, and the other parts I was like, I don't know if I like.
We don't have to read the. I told you we was doing the syllabus. We ain't got to read the whole book.
I got into it.
I did the whole thing. So I was like, maybe she knew because I thought it was a book you had read.
I really got into it. I was really invested, but by the end of it, and I think right now I don't know how I feel about Alice Walker.
I think she's a complicated figure, right? Somebody, when I was asking for topics on Instagram, said, can I get Alice Walker for an author chat? And I just feel like I think there are certain Black women who I revere greatly, but I hate to bring up a man, but when Kiese was talking about there are certain Black feminists that are not known for being nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was reading the essay on her interracial relationship, It was something that she said within it that just kind of made me be like, I don't know about you. Like, and it
It's
was
also like anti-Semitic. How do you say? I'm losing all my words because I be in the house talking to nobody. Anti-Semitism. It's like she said, very foul things about the Jews, and I just don't know. I don't know, but then again, I also reached out to Bell Hooks because of All About Love, and a few people in the cohort DM me and were like, "Girl."
I had a professor somehow get us a conversation with Bell Hooks when I was a sophomore in college, and I was just like, I don't know, she's scary. Like, she's just
but then you go back and look at the talks that they've done, and like, who do they give their time to? Like, I was absolutely stunned that Dr. Collins said yes. And not that she doesn't have a reputation for not being amiable, but most of her talks have been academic talks. And then like when you look at like Walker and Hooks, it's either they're in conversation with Celia Sanchez, or it's like they're in conversation with the Harvard Institute.
Yeah.
Like, they homegirl. Like, I was listening to Nikki Giovanni and Kiese. They had a talk with the Wisconsin Book Festival. And Nikki's just like, yeah, I miss my friends. I miss because I used to go to Maya Angelou's house. And we had a cooking competition. And I made her some lamb chops. But that's kind of like when they think about doing things for their girls, they doing things for like Toni Morrison. They doing things for June Jordan.
Yeah.
They're doing things for Octavia. Like, they ain't doing things for the girls, who you? Oh yeah, no, I know. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, my clique, like that Black women writers picture that floats around every now and then. That's like the group.
So sometimes it's a little harder, but I understand the boundary that they put up. Because they do get inundated, because there's not a lot of Black women never exist in plurality in any space. And so they have to put up the boundary. It just sucks how that boundary reverberates to our kind. That's all. But it's also mindful that as we do the work, how do we create our boundaries and also be mindful of being accessible to the community?
Yeah, I think that's really what it is. It's an issue of accessibility. They feel very far removed, despite their politics being like what directly informs so many of us.
I don't even know how to contact Alice Walker. So all y'all talking about, get her. Find me her info. Okay. All right. So
okay, she ain't got to be nice, but get that.
So womanist, as defined by Alice Walker, is from womanish, opposite of girlish. So it's the opposite of frivolous, irresponsible, not serious. A Black feminist or feminist of color. From the Black folk expression of mothers to their children, you act in womanish, i.e. like a woman, refers to audacious, courageous, or willful behavior, wanting to know more and in greater depth than is considered good for one, interested in grown-up things, acting grown-up, being grown-up, interchangeable with another Black folk expression, you trying to be grown, responsible, in charge, and serious. And the definition, a womanist is to feminist as purple is to lavender. So they are in the same canon. Black feminists might just have a theory that undergirds it versus.
Nicole kind of talked about that last time, and it's just, there was almost a question posed, kind of like, what's the point
of what?
Of drawing such a distinction between womanism and Black feminism? Especially because I remember like asking people what the definition of womanism was and just getting the purple to lavender quote, and I was just like, what does that mean? Like, I see what you're trying to get at, but that doesn't actually tell me anything.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe this, like, I mean, the definitions that Nicole has in the syllabus kind of infer that womanism is more based on like colloquial phrasings. It's more based on being grown, being in your body, versus Black feminism, and Black feminism specific to the idea that this is, the foundation of Black feminism is like the Combahee River Collective, is like the, Anna Julia Cooper, right?
Mm-hmm.
That idea of community, and that, there is no liberation of the Black community without inclusion of, Anna Julia Cooper. Does anybody just ever call her Anna Cooper? Is that just a thing, like, where I say middle names because of pledging? Like, that's what I'd be trying to figure out. Like, is it Anna Julia Cooper, or could I call her Anna Cooper? I ain't the AKA, so I'm gonna call her Anna Cooper. What I'm saying is, don't nobody be like, okay, never mind. But what I'm saying is, I don't want to say Dr. Cooper because I think of Brittany Cooper. Mm-hmm. But with Anna Cooper is that, there's no liberation of the Black community without the liberation of Black women. With Convict River Collective, there is no liberation of the Black community without liberation of Black women and queer folk. Mm-hmm. So there's this understanding of mutuality that needs to exist within communion, that is part of the Black feminist praxis. But every time I've heard people really ride for the womanist nomenclature, is that they felt that feminist in particular has been so co-opted by white women that, we can't reclaim it as a different identity. Mm-hmm. And so that was sort of the holding on to womanism. I don't know. Do you separate an author and their work? I mean, I think we're trained to.
I mean, but who? Like,
any white man you done read? Whiteness is an affliction. I know they did some foul shit and they realized.
Yeah.
I don't only like books by Black authors.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of this conversation I've been saying ever since Lovecraft Country went off, and people are now reading the book that was written by the white guy. And a lot of people are like, wait, why did a white man write this book?
Well, they said the book is better than the show. Adira, that's what Adira said.
Yeah.
We have to do Adira on camera one day because she be posting all them little reviews. Introvert Interrupted, I think it's her handle.
And when you watch
that might be Christina's handle. Who I'll be looking at on Instagram.
When you watch the show, it's like, did a white man come up with all this? But he didn't come. The show was very much so like creative liberties. But yeah, I think that's a prime example. I didn't think of it that way. I guess when she said, do you separate an author and their work, I immediately thought of people like, do you separate the artist from their music? And that's like almost a different conversation. So I guess we do separate authors and their work.
I mean, I think we naturally do, but I wonder if when it comes, yeah, no, I think I do. I think Temple of My Familiar, though, part of if it's reading as confusing to a person is to understand who Alice Walker was. Because I also think maybe because Color Purple was her first book and it was already popular by this point, that she wrote this with the lens of people would be familiar with her work. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's a thing that's unique to Alice Walker. I think there are plenty of other authors who become so prominent with their early books that there is an expectation. Because I do think Temple of My Familiar does kind of push forward a theory. That's why I'm thinking like if you ever read Karl Marx, like, well, he only published Das Kapital, but you read any of his other writings that weren't completed, there is an assumption that you are familiar with the most popular work. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, you'll be able to connect some of the themes that they reappropriate in their next writings. And I also think that this book does absolutely read like a book written in the 70s.
Yeah. I was just having a conversation with someone who was trying to start Toni Morrison, and they were like, what is this? And I just, you have to take your time, and once you get the hang of it, you just go from like Morrison to Walker and just like flow through that generation.
Morrison, like you said, Sula was your first book. I want to say Song of Solomon was my first one in like 11th grade in high school.
Okay.
But also, I came up in high school in the age of Oprah's book club.
Oh yeah.
So, my mom and my grandmother, who very much so are Eric Jerome Dickey readers, were reading Toni Morrison because of Oprah.
Okay.
And not liking it. My grandma read Paradise and she was just like, oh girl, I don't know what I just read. And I need to go back and read Paradise because I just remember my grandma being like, I read it.
Like I don't know. Morrison is kind of. I feel like she has like a similar writing style to Walker, but it's different for me. I digest it in a different way.
I feel like Alice Walker strings you along a lot longer and lingers around the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
Tony be like, yeah, she cut that nigga in the throat.
Yeah.
You be like, you know, I was walking and these white men were just looking at me. So I took my basket and I cut him at the balls.
Yeah, like, I was thinking about
what
kills people off just like that, like just very matter of fact in her writing.
All right, so let's get into some of this discussion. Part 1 explores the lives of several characters. We learn of Carlotta. I have a cousin named Carlotta.
Okay.
And her grandmother Zede. How in your head are you pronouncing Zede?
I said Zede. I said Zayday. I was like, I went to like
audio book version and hear how are they pronouncing it.
Okay.
And then Ayurveda.
Mm-hmm. That's what I got.
Who is intimately connected to both characters. We learn of Suello, Fanny, Hall, Rafi, and Lisi. This section focuses on the complexities of familial relationships and intimate partnerships. Additionally, this section also explores the importance of storytelling within diasporic traditions. The stories told by Lisi and Hall offer Suello an opportunity to learn about the strength of and importance of women throughout history. Likewise, he is taught of the importance of the human spiritual connection with animals. In this section, we learn that Ayurveda is not only a lover, but a musician, and he serves as a type of messenger. So what messages does this nigga that want to be Jimi Hendrix, named Ayurveda, seem to provide? You like, bitch, nah. You gotta say that my whole life.
Oh, maybe I need to keep reading because right, like I think I'm honestly just stuck on because there's a way that he tries to, I guess, manipulate the situation with Carlotta's mom to be some like spiritual affair that he tries to justify it as like a spiritual, just like otherworldly thing that's beyond his control, and it just reeks of just like manipulation and just man. I don't know what message he's trying to send. I can't get past just the aura that he is giving off.
I wonder, like, I definitely have been in an experience where I was being lied to and there was another person involved, and they very much so, like Ayurveda, said that it was spiritual, that it was like, you know, it was within the universe, that it was more, they said it was karmic. It was a karmic connection.
Right. And who can argue with that? Like, what are you supposed to say when they're like, it's the universe though? Like, it's meant, this is my twin flame or whatever their reasoning is. Like, what are you supposed to say? And I think I have such an issue with really viewing his character as a messenger.
But do we not believe in any sort of mysticism? Do we not believe in the power of the universe?
No.
So is it that the universe can only manifest things that are explicably good for everyone? Is there never anything that the universe says is meant to be that does cause some people harm? Like, you know what I mean? I get the foulness of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But does that mean that he was lying about the spirituality of it?
Not necessarily. I just
it don't feel good. I know it don't feel good.
It's heartbreaking because, you know, it just, and then Carlotta already kind of has these issues with her mother. You know, they kind of, which their relationship is like.
Did they have issues, or did they just? I think there were assumptions.
Yeah,
that was never spoken about.
Yeah, it's very disconnected. It's just, so it's not like one of those like hostile mother-daughter relationships that's often portrayed, but there's still a disconnect somewhere. But there's also love there, I think. But it's kind of shattered or just messed up during this moment. And even the mom's role, you know, she's like, what's the conversation when she's like, you're my son-in-law, I can't do this. And there's like this pull between them that's almost undeniable. And I'm reading it like, y'all really can't help it.
Yeah, someone from Facebook is saying it seems very coincidental that the universe would allow him to do something so foul and be justified. But I mean, isn't anything that's like karmic, that's mystic, that is from the universe, doesn't it always have this air of coincidence? Because isn't the idea of coincidence that there's no earthly reason for it happening?
I mean,
isn't there always going to be an air of coincidence? Like, isn't it a coincidence that, I don't know. I was gonna say a coincidence that he met Carlotta.
And I guess, like, is the universe inherently good? Like, is it because, you know, 'cause she's saying that that the universe would allow him to do something so foul. Like, who's say like which way the universe is gonna operate?
I mean, and it might be good for Carlotta's. It might be good for ZD, right? That this woman has only had sex twice. One of those times produced a child.
Mm-hmm.
She just kind of, she went, she was in prison for being supposedly a communist. They had a really hard immigration process. She toiled for all these years and then got a breakthrough only recently, and then went from that breakthrough to being the caretaker largely for her grandchildren while her daughter and the husband traveled. Isn't this, I think even Carlotta did kind of see that the light, that this lit in her mother in a way that she's never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
That her mother opened up.
That Ayurveda reminds her of, I think she said that Ayurveda reminds her of
Carlotta's father.
Yeah. But I think that kind of confused me because she got pregnant in prison, right? Like, was this?
Yeah, that is true. That was like a drop though, that no one believed her until she got pregnant. Like, her belly started to swell. So maybe he was a lover before Carl. I don't know. That might have been a plot hole. I didn't catch. Hold on. I didn't even think of that. That she said she made reference to his hair and that he looked Afro-Brazilian.
Oh, Michaela wants to know, do any of the characters overlap from The Color Purple?
Yeah, Suge Avery makes an appearance as a lesbian. I actually think her partner in the book is also Whoopi Goldberg's character from The Color Purple. Celie.
Yeah, Celie.
Yeah, Celie and Suge Avery make an appearance in the book. And Suge Avery in particular has a very pivotal point in the book.
Okay. Something to look forward to. Okay.
I mean, you could Google the Gospel according to Suge Avery if you don't want to wait to get to that part. It is literally it's a Bible according to Suge Avery. I love it. I love it. What role has and does music play in providing Black folks with messages?
Well, I think in terms of the music that Ayurveda is the music he creates, it's seen as being very sensual and like a community style art form. He's very like it says something about him like creating the music that like people make babies to or something like that. But I think in general, music has definitely, been one of those things that is heavily entrenched in, Blackness. Black people have a very strong relationship with music, obviously. But I think that exploring the ancestral relationship to music and the ways that music has kind of been like a timeless connection of things that'll take a long time.
Yeah, I think, when Carlotta's talking about the way Ayurveda's music evolves and like how it changes, after he had relations with the mother, and the sort of sadness, but he was just such a good guitar player that, people just would stay around to hear him play regardless of what he was playing. But that sort of deep sadness, like she even recognized that she was, he wasn't playing for her. He wasn't playing to her. There was a point where his music, he was playing to her, but she just thought he was so far in a trance that he was in another space and time, and really he was, thinking about entering into ZD. What are you carrying? You know what I mean? Like, their relationship existed, in sort of this realm of it doesn't exist in like this purely phallic realm, right? Like, they have like, his music does kind of speak to how he connects to ZD. But I don't know that I took it, when it's kind of like you're in such shock from the action that happened that I don't know that when I read it, I was like, oh yes, there's some like, yeah, I agree. I don't know that I could pontificate about the idea of what it means for the universe and spiritual and karmic things to happen. But in the moment of reading the book, you are so aghast at the foulness of what they did that, Carlotta is describing Ayurveda's music. And you're like, fuck that nigga. Like, fuck that man. I'm not taking no deep meaning out there. But, that's why we have the syllabus to bring you back down.
Because the mom, whatever it was that the mom said, what did she, let me see. It was like the first thing that indicated there was a relationship going on. She said, on page 19, I think, it is as if you went out, Carlotta's mother sobbed after the first meeting and brought your father home. And then, she goes down and she says, he was Indio, your father, and his hair was rough. But now Carlotta and Ayurveda had been married for 3 years. They had 2 children, and her mother adored. Ayurveda loves you. You must believe this. But also, he and I loved each other from the start. Like, it just gave me, like, Lifetime movie. Like, it was very soap opera, very telenovela. Like, it was very dramatic. I was just like, I know your husband loves you, my daughter, but like, from the first time we laid eyes on each other, we were here. Me and your husband, like, we were here. So I just was like, I don't know.
Be in love. It hurts. It does hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, what role does Lizzie play in the life of Suello?
I had to reread this quite a bit because I was kind of...
It was only 4 questions for 140 pages of part 1. That's why I was thinking part 1 lightweight, but it's not.
I think that she's kind of like an ancestor, like kind of allude to the next question. She's like an adversary, just very kind of like a voice of reason. Someone who's just kind of like providing him with a little spiritual guidance, I guess. Because I was reading something, it was just like saying that it was talking about Nicole's 4th question and saying how Lizzie is kind of like symbolic of an ancestor because she is Suello's connection to himself. She's how he is able to learn to connect with himself, learn about like his sexuality and all the parts.
Yeah, and I think when we get further into the book, this sort of idea of connecting back to your ancestors and to the history that precedes you, because the familiar is an actual object, right? The familiar is like, what becomes the guide. You're like, not, I know spirit animal isn't necessarily a PC term, but a familiar is essentially one spirit animal, one that guides them through life. Mm-hmm. So as we go back in through history and we kind of look at history through the perspective of a Black woman, it is the familiar that, you can't go back in history as a Black woman and be safe.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, so much of our history is wrapped up in oppression and trauma. And the familiar is the guide that kind of, helps rewrite that history in a loving way for a Black woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay.
So I hope y'all stick with it.
I hope I stick with it. No, I'm
trying to get to the point where I read ahead, but I'm behind with everybody else.
I think I read part 1 yesterday. I read part of it again this morning because I was just like, what's not clicking? What's not clicking?
I still need to get into pleasure activism. Well, I started, I have the Audible, but I'm going to read the hard copy because we're only actually reading 7 chapters of pleasure activism.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to get prepared for Adrian to sit down with us. But I want to, we have our list through April of next year. So I just ordered all the books this week. And I'm going to try and find some time to read. But I've read every book with the book club, though. Mm-hmm. I read Parable of the Sower again. I don't think there's any book that I've actually been able to skip or not complete.
I didn't.
Just because I end up doing the final live discussions, so that always gets, you know what I mean? It gets me. So I'm like, dang, I gotta really read the book.
I read the live discussions to like hold myself accountable, but I did not read Eloquent Rage. That was, I think I remember like not reading that one because I read it at school and I didn't want to read it again.
Yeah, I reread Eloquent. So every book that we've read in the book club thus far is a book that I am essentially rereading. Our book for December will be my first time reading that book. Yeah, because we're going to get into some, coming up, we're getting into some of the newer reads that have been really popular. Oh, well, Such a Fun Age was a first time reading. But that was so easy. You know what I mean? That was awesome. That was a great, like...
That's how I feel about Vanishing Half, too. It's really good. I like it.
Yeah. So I think since we are going to get into some of the newer reads that have come out, that might help people be able to keep up with what we're reading. If you're an insider, you get to know what the list is. Everyone else, you're just gonna have to wait with our lateness. Sorry. But yeah, I think some of I am realizing that sometimes going back to these books are a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Because they always asking about PlayStation and Xbox. It's always a troll that show up. Because these books are just more, I don't know, how would you describe them? That, like, what makes it more difficult about reading Toni Morrison versus not necessarily Such a Fun Age, but maybe something like Luster? Have you read Luster?
No, I haven't. I have not.
Or The Vanishing Half. What makes Toni Morrison a more heavy read than The Vanishing Half?
I think that there is, with like Morrison and Walker, there's a lot of interpretation that you have to do as a reader, whereas like Vanishing Half and these present day narratives they kind of walk you through it. They really just like spell everything out. It's very I don't know, it reads like a regular novel, whereas they kind of rely a lot on symbolism, and there's a lot of like political commentary and all these things that are happening. Granted, it's the same with Vanishing Half, but it just kind of reads it's very straightforward. And if you don't read Toni Morrison, Gwendolyn Brooks, and like any of those writers, it's a whole new world when you're going into it.
Yeah, someone's asking, are you reading the whole book for the theory read? No, for pleasure activism, we are reading 7 chapters. I'm realizing that I don't have it listed on the website that we're reading 7 chapters. Oh, if you click on this, I guess what happens is a lot of people don't even look at the syllabus. Even if you don't buy the syllabus, on the syllabus page for pleasure activism, we list out the essays that are being read for the book. Yeah, so that information is available on the website. Maybe we should do better with the blog posts. It's just difficult. You know, we have a small team behind the scenes running everything. We do little bit by little. Toni and Alice add magic in places you weren't expecting it, and sometimes it throws you off. LOL. I know. Yeah, they do. I think, is there a modern author who uses mysticism without it being sci-fi?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know anyone.
Homegoing. Yeah, Jesse.
I don't know. That's still kind of, that didn't.
The motifs were still very on the nose, right? There's not a lot of.
You don't have to do a lot of guessing. You don't have to have a lot of, I guess, background knowledge.
I mean, do you have that? background knowledge for Tony book. I think you just have to be. It doesn't make you think. It's not a book you can read. It's not a passive read.
Right. You have to be like tapped in to certain, I guess, things in a certain way. So if you're just kind of looking for, just a quick little, like such a fun age, quick little pickup read, it's not them.
So we're trying to balance that out. I think the beginning of next year is going to get a little heavy with the books we have lined up, but we are always we have been actively, when discussing the upcoming reads, balancing out what we read with lighter reads.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not, because the January read is a straight up like murder mystery fiction book. And then we get back into Morrison for February, so you guys can all hate me then. And then March. Yeah, I mean, I think some of our theory books, but we don't read the whole book, except for In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. Morgan decided for us to read that. That's Morgan's fault, not mine. That was Morgan's decision to read all of In Search of Our Mother's Garden, which is the next theory after pleasure activism. But we're gonna read an article after that, and the article is just dense. It's a deep theory, but then it's a necessary read because it makes sense of everything we're gonna read after.
Is it CJ's article?
Yeah, it's CJ and Alicia, the syllabi that CJ and Alicia are working on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're doing that together because it's such a dense text that they were like, let's collaborate on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew that we knew that November was going to be a tough month. So actually, the next fiction read we have is really light. We have 1, 2, 3. So November, December, January, all the way through the holiday season, we have pretty light fiction reads. And then February, we get back into Toni Morrison, and then we'll just go back and forth. I think we've done a pretty good job even this year of month on, month off. Oh, what am I reading? Oh, this is fun. What am I reading? Oh, this is fun, And we've gotten a lot of good classics. I think, I'm pretty, even if you've gotten the books, checked them off in the library, got the audiobook, and you've read maybe half of the book, and moved on to the next, or whatever. I think the idea that you picked up one more book than normal is a pretty big deal. Jessamine Ward. Oh, you're right. Jessamine Ward does mix the mysticism, and I love. You know what I mean? I like mysticism. Sing Unburied Sing, which I have not. I thought about it, but that is such a heavy book. And it's so sad. And I thought this year in particular, well, one, I was also thinking that I don't know how available Jessamine was this year because her husband passed away at the beginning of the year. And she has young children. And that's definitely a book where I would absolutely want to be able to sit down with the author and talk to them. But I guess the idea of when you think about Blackness in the mundane, without making Black people superheroes, and mysticism, it does become like a deeply sad book.
Mm-hmm.
Because low-key East Bayou is sad.
I love that movie.
Is your daughter crying? You got to go?
I'm not worried about her.
I can hear it though. Your face was like, girl, what's wrong?
No, I said I love that movie.
Oh. I rewatched it last week. But low key, that movie is sad. Like all the death and all the, cheating and lying. And I think in particular with, Black mysticism, especially when it's centered around the Black woman experience, is that there's this consistent acknowledgement that niggas ain't shit. And I think we keep wanting to read these books with these magical Black women who somehow their magic gets niggas act together, but there ain't no act of magic that can do that. You know what I mean? And so we're all just like, damn, it doesn't suck for everybody. That is why. Sing Unburied Sing, the character is a Black woman with a white man, but they both crackheads.
What's the other one I've heard a lot of people talking about?
Men We Reaped.
American Marriage?
Oh, by Tayari Jones. Yeah. Also, okay, that I have a whole review on my YouTube channel of Tayari Jones' American Marriage, which is going to turn into a movie.
Okay.
And it's a book we could probably read in the book club, but that book just bothered all my bougie Black sensibilities. How you a spell house couple and ain't got no network?
What?
So in American Marriage, it's the wife went to Spelman and she's from like a upper middle class Black family, and the husband went to Morehouse and he's from a working class family and to work his way up, and they go back to, I want to say, Louisiana to visit his family, and they don't stay at the family house because the wife was a little bougie. She wants to stay at a hotel, and an old woman accuses the husband of rape, and he gets locked up for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to spoil the rest, but the whole book, I'm like, the nigga went to Morehouse. You ever met a Morehouse man? All they know how to do is brand themselves. You have to know somebody that's still in Atlanta that you can call and get Benjamin Crump on the phone. Like, he ain't gonna do shit, but he do.
My Instagram mentor is a Spelman Delta, and she know everybody from Atlanta all the way to.
You went to Spelman. He went to Morehouse. How do you not know nobody? How you get locked up for 7 years and it ain't even a news conference about it?
They wasn't tapped in to that.
Yeah, I mean, it was not but you know what? True tea, I do know when I think about that person who believed in the karmicness of lying and cheating, they went to Spelman and their husband went to Morehouse, and all they know is white people.
How does it? But
I don't trust folks who went to bougie Black colleges and don't know Black folks. They ain't got a strong network of Black people that they can. Yeah, I don't at all. I have not read Salvageable. Y'all are out here naming books and dropping. I have not. Have I read Salvageable? No, I read Men We Reap, and I've read Sing Unburied Sing. But I think, isn't Salvage the Bone the books that just came out this year? I need to stop buying books because I still need to reapply for my PhD, and so it's a 11 book. I don't know why I haven't read it.
Salvage the Bone. Who's the author?
Jasmine Ward.
Okay.
I think is Silver Sparrow the book I just ordered? No. Oh, Tyra's her second book. To be honest, I don't know if after reading American Marriage that I am inclined to, with all my other reading, to pick up another one of her books. But I think it would be a good movie because you would walk out that movie theater mad as hell. The book just don't end. It don't end on a sweet note. At all.
What was that? What was the Baldwin book that they adapted?
If Beale Street Could Talk, but the book is way sadder than the movie. I love that movie. You didn't like If Beale Street Could Talk?
I shouldn't sleep twice.
I have watched that movie. You know what? But everyone that I took with me to see it was like, girl, what kind of sadness did you just walk me into? It is so beautiful. Oh my gosh.
I don't even remember going to sleep. That's how fast I went.
You didn't watch it at the movie theater? You didn't watch it at the movie theater?
Yeah.
And you fell asleep in the movie theater?
I couldn't do it. I was so excited for the movie, and then I saw it and I was like, oh.
Have you read the book? Did you like the book?
It was fine.
It's one of my least. It's not my least favorite. It's one of the books I like less from Baldwin.
Yeah, it was kind of like,
I don't think the women characters are very well developed in the book, but I think Barry Jenkins did a wonderful, especially with the young girl's mom in the movie, Regina King's character. I mean, you fell asleep, so you ain't really see her go to Puerto Rico and all that other.
I saw Regina. I do remember seeing Regina.
She acted her little Black ass. Regina is undefeated. She did that. But I think I like The Last Man in San Francisco, The Last Black Man in San Francisco. What's the name of that movie? Yeah, the Jonathan Majors was in. I like those kind of slow melodic movies. I love the idea of seeing Black people in the mundane. I don't necessarily I love the production value of a Lovecraft Country.
Yeah.
But I don't need that to always be. And I think the fact that we tend to rely on that, not that we rely on Lovecraft type things, but what was the other movie that Ava DuVernay did that had Oprah in it that wasn't good?
Oh, crap! I can't. I know what you're talking about.
Something Before Time.
I know what you're talking about. I remember that.
A Wrinkle Before Time. A Wrinkle in Time.
A Wrinkle in Time. Yes.
It was not good. You know what I mean? Like,
it was just Oprah. You know.
It's just like, you know, sometimes Antebellum and this whole idea of like, I don't know what the fuck their idea was. It was just bad. You know, I like this. I didn't like Harriet because it relies on this idea that we have to be magical in order to be great as Black people. And I think what really does well, what I really love, not what does well, but what I love is this idea of honoring the ordinary in us. Because to be an ordinary Black person is still extraordinary. You know, in contrast to whiteness, to exist as a Black person, especially in America, is already an extraordinary feat in itself. And so, yes, I love those sort of like slow moving movies like If Beale Street Could Talk, because it doesn't, the ending was less sad in the movie than it is in the book. Did you get to the ending?
I woke up in time for the end. Because I remember waking up and being like, why am I still in here? Like, what?
Try again. Just try one more time. Maybe you don't like Nicholas Brittle's music. He did Barry Jenkins' next series on Amazon. So I did not like Colson Whitehead's Underground Railroad.
No.
Did you read that?
No. I heard a lot. I was reading reviews on it, and I was like, I'm not gonna waste my time.
It's a quick read. It's a super quick read.
I remember the one review that I read, like, ripped it apart. So I was just like,
it's very much so written by a Black man with a white wife. I like, because the main character is a Black woman, and I'm like, whoever wrote this book don't know a Black woman. Mm-hmm. Ain't no Black woman gonna risk her life to escape slavery and try to settle in motherfucking Tennessee. What is wrong with you?
What?
Then she gets out of Tennessee and is like, ooh, the Carolinas, my kind of place. It's 1840 something, bitch. If you don't get on that little magical train and at the minimum take your ass to Baltimore. I could understand if you didn't know the penal code of 1852 was going to happen. Or 54, whenever they passed that law about the Fugitive Slave Act.
Yeah.
I get if you ain't know about that. But baby, you knew that slavery was a thing in the South.
They come in with all the book recommendations.
I know. If you want to recommend books, that's also another insider perk. I need to send out another insider newsletter to remind folks of what the perks of their membership are. Because you do get to recommend books, you do get a book list, and we're working on creating more product for the insiders, and that we would generally just sell to everyone else. I was trying to do a candle line, but it's been difficult.
Oh, I love it.
I wanted to do candles for each like month. So a different scent every month.
Ooh.
But it's just been a very slow process. This year has been a mess. So, all right. Well, thank y'all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope Morgan enjoys this book a little bit more as we get into the next part.
I like Sugar Avery, so I'm hopeful. We'll see what goes on.
It'll get better, I promise. All right. We'll holler at y'all later. Deuces.